Joyce. Okay, do we got any questions?
Governor, did your effort to change the vaccine mandates in Florida take a hit when President Trump said this weekend that he doesn't seem to be in favor of it?
Well, I would just say, I've never been in favor of mandates, so let's just be clear on that. Now, there are things that have been in law that are legacy. In Florida, when you talk about schools, we have very generous exemptions. And so I think what you see is a lot of parents use that as it is now. And I also think a lot of people don't realize, there's a lot of countries in Europe, especially UK, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, most of the provinces in Canada here in North America, they have zero mandates. And yet you end up seeing pretty similar results. So I think people are conflating not forcing somebody with somehow not making it available. It'll be available for whoever wants it. But the way certainly our schools work now is parents do have, the ability, to exercise those exemptions. And the reality is this: since COVID and the disaster that the medical establishment inflicted on people and the lies that were told, people have lost confidence in the medical establishment. You have seen an increase in parents who are opting for those exemptions. The Surgeon General believes, and I believe, that if you actually didn't say you've got to take this, otherwise you're going to be punished, I think you'd actually have more uptake on some of those. I think there's some people, they're being told they have to do it, so they're opting for the exemption. But if they were told, hey, here's why you would want to do it, I actually think you'd see more. And that's why in Britain and some of these, they have high uptakes on those because people have trust. But one of the things so I've never been for mandates. But one of the things that I think is really, really frustrating to see how this gets weaponized. First, we saw it during COVID. They wanted to say that if you didn't get a COVID mRNA shot and show proof of that you shouldn't be able to go to restaurants, you shouldn't be able to go to sporting events, shouldn't be able to attend college, you shouldn't be able to go K through 12 school without having any data to back that up. And they were even trying to impose mandates on people who had recovered from COVID and had natural immunity. So it was unscientific. It was basically them trying to control. Now, we batted that back in Florida. We banned vaccine passports. We made sure that colleges and universities couldn't mandate, no mandate K-12, no workplace mandates and everything like that. And that saved a lot of people's livelihoods and jobs who were not in a situation where that was something, that they wanted to do. But what happens now, and then the CDC under Biden, they added the COVID mRNA shot to the childhood immunization schedule. The problem with that is that there was not a scientific basis to do that. They're doing it and and parents have rebelled. The vast majority of parents do not do the COVID shot for that. So it's like, where are they coming up with this? So I think the trust has really been broken. But what really bugs me, because I think the schools, there's exemptions, and so I actually don't think the outcome would be much different at all. But I think on some of these other things where you can be turned away from a doctor's office if your 6-year-old didn't take a hepatitis B shot, that's a sexually transmitted disease. Like, look, sitting in a classroom in kindergarten, I think the chance of contracting Hep B is probably pretty low based on how it's contracted. And so a lot of parents are like, that may not be what we want, but then you're going to be denied to be able to see. They have places, and I don't think it's going on in Florida, but we need protections against this, where they have denied people surgeries because they didn't have a flu shot, or they didn't have COVID jab, or they didn't have Hep B and some of this stuff. And that's really weaponizing this against people, imposing bad consequences on them just because the parent may have made a decision on one of those things. And I think that's pretty much where people are at. But the conflation of, if you don't force somebody to do something and impose penalties on them, then therefore they're not permitted to do it? No, of course they're permitted to do it. And I saw a lot of stuff over there. The Surgeon General of Florida is taking away vaccine. He never said anything. He never said that there wouldn't be any availability. Obviously, that's not his position. But I think his position is that if you provide information and persuasion, that's better than coercion. And here's the deal. You see a lot of back and forth up in Washington about CDC and everything. We just have to acknowledge that it was a catastrophic failure during COVID. And I'd say our Surgeon General, who feels very strongly about this, in March of 2020, Joe Latipo said we shouldn't do lockdowns. He was pilloried for saying that. Very few people were willing to say that. He said you shouldn't be forcing young school children to wear masks shortly thereafter that. He was pilloried for saying that. He said that schools needed to be open for in-person instruction when Florida did it. He was supportive of that. He was pilloried for that. He said you should not mandate mRNA vaxes on people and let it be their choice. He was pilloried for that. So on all these different things, he was doing what he thought was correct policy and what was in the interest of people, including their individual freedom. And he was pilloried, but yet he was right. He was right on all those things. The lockdowns were harmful. The mask mandates on kids. Now, I overruled those in Florida, but there were school districts that wanted to do it. The forcible mRNA shots, that was wrong. Having kids locked out of school for a year that was wrong. So, you're in a situation where, he's got very strong feelings about coercion ending up being counterproductive when it applies to these medical situations. And I would just say, because when, he asked me, he's like, because he took certain action, there was regulatory mandates that were not in statute like Hep B. And he said, first of all, we don't have the really true authority to be doing that. So he took that away. Even though there's exemptions, he's doing that. And then he's making sure that the exemptions can't be watered down. So that's the actions he actually took. Now, some of the stuff in statute, obviously, that would require additional legislation. But when he told me, he's like, look, I want to say that I don't believe in any of these. Do you mind? I was like, say what you believe, man. Go ahead and do it. But I think one of the things when he told me, he's like, look, Britain doesn't have any mandates. Sweden doesn't have any mandates. Most of the provinces in Canada don't. Norway, Ireland, all these places. And basically, the results are not dissimilar from the United States in terms of all this. And I think the reason is because parents are provided information. They're not being coerced. They're doing it. And I think when given accurate information, I think they're going to do what's best for their kids. I mean, everyone wants their kids to grow up to be healthy. And I think that's what you see in those countries that don't use coercion and don't use mandates to be able to do it. But those exemptions that he is fortifying in Florida law, are something that a lot of parents currently are opting into. And I think part of that is, I think some people just have views on what they want for their kids. But I do think some of it is a skepticism when they're being told, hey, wait a minute, you told me I had to put a mask on a 2-year-old kid. You told me I had to do this. And so when they're telling you, even if they're right, I think some people are pushing back against it. So it's going to take some time to rebuild trust there. And I think what the Surgeon General's position is the way you build trust is to provide information and use persuasion rather than try to ostracize people from society if they make a different choice.
At a recent press briefing, Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican Florida, responded to concerns raised by President Trump regarding Florida's decision to drop all vaccine mandates for school children. The governor made it clear that he has never supported vaccine mandates, citing Florida's generous exemption system that allows parents to opt out if they choose. He explained that parents in Florida are already utilizing these exemptions, and noted that countries like the UK, Sweden, and Canada, which have no vaccine mandates, see similar health outcomes to the U.S. DeSantis further emphasized that his stance is about providing people with the freedom to make their own decisions, rather than imposing coercive measures. He pointed out that parents should have the right to choose whether to vaccinate their children, especially after the loss of trust in the medical establishment that many parents experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. The governor also touched on the issue of vaccine passports, recalling how Florida passed laws to ban such mandates, including the requirement for COVID-19 vaccination proof for accessing restaurants, schools, or sporting events. He criticized the imposition of COVID mandates, noting that even individuals who had recovered from COVID-19 and had natural immunity were subjected to restrictions. DeSantis acknowledged that the addition of the COVID mRNA vaccine to the childhood immunization schedule by the CDC was a decision made without a scientific basis. He pointed out that the vast majority of parents in Florida rejected the COVID vaccine for their children, expressing frustration over the lack of transparency and the disregard for parental choice in such matters. The governor also shared concerns about the denial of medical services to individuals who refused certain vaccinations, such as the flu or hepatitis B vaccines. He called for protections to ensure that people aren't denied essential services based on their vaccination status, stressing the importance of personal choice. He noted that the approach in Florida has always been about giving parents the ability to make informed decisions about their children's health, without being forced or penalized. DeSantis believes that providing information and encouraging voluntary participation is a more effective strategy than coercion, and that trust in the system can be rebuilt by offering clear facts and transparent communication. In his final remarks, DeSantis highlighted that the actions taken in Florida to protect parents' rights and medical freedom reflect a broader global trend where countries without mandates, like Britain and Sweden, continue to see positive health outcomes. He expressed confidence that with more trust and information, parents would make decisions they feel are best for their children's health, without being ostracized or penalized for their choices.